So I wanted to create the perfect Final Fantasy 17 with the pieces of the old Final Fantasy. You're going to see what I mean. I want to assemble like a Final Fantasy Frankenstein, piece by piece. What would be in my perfect Final Fantasy? So our journey to create the perfect Final Fantasy 17 begins where every Final Fantasy begins. That the first thing you notice when a new game comes out is, what is the setting? What's the vibe they're going for? What's the tone they're going for? And for me, in my perfect 17, I feel like we have to go back to Ivalice. I mean, just the political, the cultural, and in my opinion, the spiritual jewel of Final Fantasy settings. It feels ancient and alive. And no other setting has really captured the texture of civilization quite like Ivalice has. If you've watched my channel for any period of time, you know how much I love Ivalice, every cathedral, every bazaar. I think the grounded realism of tactics like politics with the grand scope of Final Fantasy XII's airship age, like a world of saints and sinners and machines and miracles. That'd be pretty cool. Now, the vibe, the themes. I think a theme is more important in a Final Fantasy game than probably other games, because every Final Fantasy does have a core theme. Every perfect Final Fantasy needs its beating heart. That's kind of what keeps us going subconsciously. And for me, when I create the perfect 17, I think the theme should be faith, and it's kind of like on the lines of Final Fantasy X. Like 8 was about kind of identity, right? And when I say faith, I don't necessarily mean religion itself. I mean belief itself. Faith in God or gods may not be the answer, but there is a faith in each other, your party members, when things always begin to fall apart, as they tend to do in JRPG games. But faith that even when everything ends or everything is crumbling, like that dream of a perfect world or whatever, that dream continues. Like Final Fantasy X, my Final Fantasy 17 would challenge the very concept of faith, showing both its beauty and its corruption. Because, to me, that's what makes Final Fantasy feel like Final Fantasy. It's not necessarily the iconic Final Fantasy iconography, like crystals or summons or chocobos or whatever, but it's like in the story, it's this belief that you're fighting for something better. You know what I mean? Now, I want to talk about art direction, and there's really only one way to go, one direction to go. And visually, my 17 has to feel like a dream you could paint. And what better way to do that than Yoshitaka Amano's watercolor, this surrealist painting art style. Like ethereal, it's almost like soft or delicate in a way. That has to be the defining aesthetic. It has to be. Soft lines, like luminous colors, and designs that feel more myth and more fairy tale than realistic. So sorry, Final Fantasy 15 and 16, as medieval and medieval fantasy as 16 is, the art style is a little too grounded in realism. So with Amano's art style, even the mundane can feel very divine. which I like. Like, in my opinion, Final Fantasy was and is never meant to look like reality. It should look like a fantasy. Wow, call me crazy, right? Right. Here is a big cog in our Final Fantasy 17 machine, the battle system. What battle system should we use? Well, for me, we go, I have to, I thought about this a lot because this is the one where you can go in a lot of different directions. You can go from action, Final Fantasy 16 and 15, semi-action, 7 Rebirth Remake, pure turn-based, Final Fantasy 9, 7, OG 7. But for me, I have to go with Final Fantasy 12. If I had Final Fantasy 12's battle system with the Gambit system baked in, and Final Fantasy 9's ability learning system, skill learning system baked in, that would be all I would need. The battle system is the gameplay. It is one of the big gameplay hooks and loops. And so if we have 12's semi real-time combat mixed with the Gambit system, which is like the perfect marriage of planning and kind of improvisation, I always thought 12 had the perfect battle system. I don't think it's perfect. I just think it had the perfect battle system for Final Fantasy. You weren't simply issuing commands, you were teaching your party how to think. This is with Gambits. And it gave combat this living pulse. It was kind of like directing, maybe not directing, but kind of orchestrating mid-battle and orchestrating like pre-battle. And where 12 really emphasized like automation and adaptability, our Final Fantasy 17 will let you kind of refine it through the equipment and skill learning of Final Fantasy 9, which I always thought was simple but satisfying. So like weapons, armor, accessories, they granted you abilities, when you equip them and you get a certain amount of like, I don't know exactly what the term was in 9, like SP, like skill points, or no, it's AP, ability points. Yeah, you get a certain amount of you get a certain amount of ability points after a fight, and yeah, just watching it tick up, it's simple. It's a simple skill acquisition system, but it's just satisfying. There's nothing wrong with simple. So in our Final Fantasy 17, we'll have the battle system of 12 with the Gambit system. It has to have the Gambit system. And then, for the skill system, Final Fantasy 9. And what does all this mean? Well, it means leveling up. It means character progression, character growth. And there's no other question what we had to use, which game we had to use for our skill progression system. And that game is Final Fantasy X, the Sphere Grid. Imagine, like, for all my ARPG fans, imagine a Sphere Grid the size and complexity and depth of Path of Exile or Path of Exile 2. Pretty good, right? I think we would all collectively nut ourselves. And if we had one of those deep customization sphere grids, because that's basically what Path of Exile's skill tree is. I just love it. I wanted to like the license board as much as I loved the sphere grid, but I just don't for some reason. But more branching paths, more skills, more overlap, more defining characteristics and attributes that you could assign. And yeah, I think That for me is S tier character progression in Final Fantasy. But if you like one better, let me know. Because I do like, I mean, obviously you still level up, right? Just like in 10, you still level up, but you gain your attributes and stats from the sphere grid. And that's what I want in my Final Fantasy 17. Now, this one is, I've already made a video about this, and this is exploration. You want open zones, open world, overworld, linear, Final Fantasy 13 style. Because for me, the map is like, it's always felt like somewhere you can kind of exhale. You know what I mean? From your adventure and kind of chill, whether you're walking or in your airship or on a chocobo. It always felt like this kind of like step back time, right? And for me, a lot of, and I'm just going to go over this briefly because I already made a video about it, but a lot of modern RPGs, or JRPGs, I should say, have really lost or just forgotten or just don't care about the joy of traveling. It's kind of overlooked the wonder of seeing your airship kind of crest over the horizon. But our perfect Final Fantasy 17 will restore that feeling. Now here's what I'm thinking. Overworld, classic overworld with airships and things that you can land. And I actually got some of these ideas from people in the comments from my open world versus overworld video. So what I'm thinking is overworld, right? But you can land in these big open zones, these big, like very handcrafted, detailed and rich open zones, but they're connected by an overworld that would like really do homage to classic Final Fantasy games. So like imagine seeing your airship on the clouds. You know, you got the shrinking towns like flying by you, and they're shrinking in the distance, mountain ranges below you. And you dive down to explore a hidden ruin, and you go into this bigger open zone or isolated island. Like imagine you landed, well, you can't land there, but in the original Final Fantasy VII, the island with Knights of the Round, imagine like you're flying in your airship and you could just land there, but instead of it just being a tiny little forest and you can go into the cave and get the materia, it was just like a big open area with some enemies and open zone. And that's where we actually borrow from Final Fantasy 16 a little bit, with these open zones like that, but connected with an overworld of classic Final Fantasy games. So yeah, needless to say, our Final Fantasy 17 is probably going to run like shit. You're going to need a beefy NASA rig to kind of get it running, you know, at least at 60 frames, but whatever. Our head's already in the cloud. So now, this is like one of those classic debates. Do you have random encounters or visible enemies? And I think you should have them both. And why do I think you should have them both? Well, why not, right? I think when you're on foot and you're in these zones or dungeons, I think visible enemies is the way to go for just if you want to skip past an enemy or something. It's not like a huge philosophical debate. This is just what I think. But I think on the overworld, when you're flying your airship or chocobo or walking around or whatever, why not fly? Why not have random encounters? And then I think it'd be a good balance, because there is something about a random encounter that I do enjoy. I don't even know what it is. I legitimately don't know what it is. I don't feel like I should enjoy random encounters, but I do. And it does have a lot to do with encounter rate. If you can get the encounter rate perfect, where it's not too high, not too low, you probably want to lean towards low if you're just fighting on the overworld. I think that would be perfect. The next part, magic, summons, and all things like that. No. Summons have always been Final Fantasy's love language with the divine. So in Final Fantasy 17, my version, and hopefully your version if you're enjoying, they're more than battle allies. They're living gods tied directly to this world's religion. So each one represents a sect of faith. So, like Shiva has frozen monasteries, Ifrit's zealots are in the desert, burning desert. Bahamut's worshippers are in these airborne sky island cathedrals like Bujurba. Again, this is Ivalice. All this is taking place in Ivalice. And kind of like Ten's Aeons, you can call on them not just as like weapons, but as kind of these mirrors of belief. And when they appear, they fight beside you. Kind of like Final Fantasy VII, the remake and Rebirth. Because I like the flashy animations of summoning an old summon, like in Final Fantasy IX or something, right? But I love the idea of the summon fighting alongside your party and not necessarily taking the place of your party like they do in Final Fantasy X. So in our Final Fantasy 17, and by saying our, I'm roping you guys into this idea. You can't escape. Have fun. Our summons are going to be gods that fight alongside our party members. And maybe because of balance issues, maybe they're a little bit weaker, but having them beside you, I think, is just way more immersive, way more cool than just having them take the place of your party or having them to be alone and just the summoner there. So they fight alongside you, a la 7 Remake and Rebirth. We'll keep a slot open in the battle party for them. Now for me, every great Final Fantasy has a great villain. And I actually thought about this way more than I thought I would. What kind of villain would I want? Well, let's talk about villain / hero. For me, it's very simple as far as hero goes. I love a classic hero's journey. Somebody who starts from nothing or starts from normality, and they have to break outside the walls of their comfort zone and achieve a great goal and bring something back, bring back some knowledge, some real wisdom back through pain and sacrifice. And that's kind of the hero's journey boiled down to like a sentence and a half. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the villain. And for me, the perfect villain, and I love Kefka, I love Kuja, Seymour or Yunalesca, but really the perfect villain is Sephiroth for me. Like this fallen angel type character, the believer turned iconoclast, Sephiroth was at one time a radiant personality, but kind of became eclipsed by his own despair. So our villain, like Sephiroth, will carry grace and ruin kind of in equal measure, because I want the villain to be this symphony of tragedy, because in our faith-filled world, that's the theme of the game. In a world full of miracles, our villain believes in nothing anymore. And that's what's going to make him terrifying. Moving on to the next part. There's actually a lot of parts. When I went into this, I thought there would be like 5, 6 different things, but I kept thinking of all these different categories I want to touch on to create our perfect Final Fantasy game. All right. Party dynamics and bonds. So the best parties weren't just characters, they were families. You have 6 ensembles cast, Final Fantasy 9's kind of like band of misfits and wanderers, and 10 was like a pilgrimage, and they all gave you people to believe in. So in our Final Fantasy 17, the party becomes the living proof of faith in each other, and I didn't think I would find a spot for Final Fantasy 15 in this video, or 13, but I really love the party dynamics in both of those games. So I love the bonding and kind of the banter of both Final Fantasy 13 and 15, and I really want that to be in our Final Fantasy 17. And I love the ideas of these emotional flashbacks, like 9's ATE system, the active time event system. And yeah. I was just thinking if there's any other kind of party members that I really want to emulate, but I really do love the camaraderie of 15 mixed with like the interpersonal relationships of 13. And you could put Final Fantasy 6 in there. God, and almost any Final Fantasy you could swap in and out. But I like the banter of 15. I really do. And 13. I don't know why. I just do. So yeah, that is what our party dynamic is going to feel like in our perfect 17 game. Now I'll go over a couple of these briefly. Side quests and mini games. It has to have a card game, like a Tetramaster, a Triple Triad. It has to have a solid, expanded card collecting system. And I would love if we had a deep game mode, not Blitzball, but something like a Blitzball, where you could go around and recruit people, and it almost had like, if you play Madden or something, which I don't anymore, but I used to always play Madden, it had like a franchise mode, you know what I mean? I think that would be really cool. It'd be something that you could just take a break from the main game and just get lost in this Blitzball-esque mini game mode, franchise mode for, a couple of weeks before going back to the story. That would be really cool. And now I want to get to the last part. This is the most important piece of our Final Fantasy 17, because without this, nothing else matters to me. This is more important than everything else I just mentioned combined, in my opinion. This is the heart of our Final Fantasy 17. Because no matter how beautiful the art or the graphics are, or how fun the gameplay loop is, how perfect the battle system is, if I wanted to create the perfect, this is not like I want to create a great game. No, if I wanted to literally create the most perfect Final Fantasy game, I couldn't do it without these two men. First, there's Nobuo Uematsu, the guy who created the melodies that became memories. I mean, like when you hear To Zanarkand, you don't really just think of the cutscene to Zanarkand. Of course you do, but you think of a feeling. It's a feeling that it gives you, like saying goodbye. Or when you hear Terra's theme, or like the victory music, like you remember why you play these games after all these years. And the most important piece to the perfect game, the perfect Final Fantasy 17 game, is Hironobu Sakaguchi has to direct this game. And this is the man who wrote stories where love and death shared the same sentence, where courage was quiet, and where the end of the world could still feel hopeful. So he saw fantasy, he didn't see it as escapism. He saw it as reflection, a mirror for the human spirit, And when he left Square, I mean, something like intangible, something, I can't even put it into like exact words, left with him. I don't know if it's a feeling, if you could say it was like the heart, if you could say it was the storytelling, but something got ripped away from Final Fantasy when he left. And yes, Final Fantasy's had good games since then, and it's evolved, and it's had like new heroes and brand new worlds, new tech. But the spirit of Sakaguchi's storytelling has always been the thread tying these games together. Yeah, so to wrap this up, R17 has to have these two, Sakaguchi and Uematsu. And I don't want to understate how, for me personally, how important music is to creating a good game. It sets the tone and the vibe, and you can really get lost in a world that has amazing music. I think of something even like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, when the music hits, when you hit the top of the hill, and it's just a feeling that you get, you know what I mean? And it's not like a gameplay thing. It's just the feeling you get. It's just, it fills your body with something. I don't know how to describe it, but it just does. And the same thing goes for Uematsu. But to have these two would definitely close the circle on our perfect Final Fantasy 17. So if we could build the perfect 17, it wouldn't be the next great JRPG. I think it would be a quiet homecoming, an amalgamation of and a reminder of where it all began, and taking all that, pushing it together, and then moving it forward, you know? Not just moving it forward and leaving things behind. And maybe a quiet thank you to the two men who made us believe in fantasy in the first place, Sakaguchi and Uematsu. So, with this long video out of the way, let me know what you think. Would you play my version of Final Fantasy 17? My version that will never happen. But man, I think that would be, I don't want to curse, but I think that would be a pretty good game. And which parts would you swap out for other, if you don't like the 12 battle system, which battle system would you use? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you'd play this. I want to hear all about it. I've been thinking about this for a few days now, and I think I settled on my perfect, and hopefully your perfect Final Fantasy 17. But if it's not, feel free to chime in, and have an amazing day. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and God bless.